How we are going to talk to aliens is a question you ask your parents as a child 20 years ago, and they would sit down with you and ask if you're smoking weed. Nowadays, with congressional hearings and even advances in our scientific understanding of the universe, this is not a stoner question ripped from one of those basement panning shots in That 70s Show. This is not only a valid question for people to actually consider, but is also a job description for a lot of people now. And yes, I know that this is basically the plot of the movie Arrival. I haven't watched it since it came out, and look, I forgot about it, okay? I really did. The term alien linguistics is the study of how we are going to communicate with extraterrestrials, and it caught my attention because this goes back to a question that I had never gotten around to answering myself. How did two cultures even begin to start talking with one another? Let's say, for example, an English-speaking explorer made their way to Japan and had to try and start communicating with the Japanese. How does that work? And this is really interesting because, as Sherry Wells Jensen, a linguist at Bowling Green State University, put it, we don't know where language came from. When we think of a scenario like the English and Japanese person trying to speak to each other, what we're actually trying to figure out is how they communicated. Wells Jensen goes on to explain that there is a difference between communicating and language. In my case, me and my dog communicate. He tells me that he wants to have dinner, and I tell him that if he doesn't start shitting outside, we're gonna have a problem. But when using language to talk to him, he doesn't get it. I can't ask him how his day was or why he feels the need to shit inside and expect a reply out of him. And I mean, it's obvious. The answer is because he's a dog, and they aren't able to use language to communicate. What he can do is walk up to me and pester me on the couch until he gets pats, because that's basically the only tool that he has. And the idea of this distinction in the two people speaking different languages to one another scenario is that communication started from us trying to understand language, but the actual speaking language itself, as in the reason we went from grunts and moans to the word like ouch, we don't know where that originated from. So coming back to the idea of communicating with aliens, that's one of the first major hurdles that we have. Humans use a language with a mix of spoken and written words, but aliens, on the other hand, we have no idea. They might use numbers, shapes, or something that we can't even begin to understand as their form of language. This becomes a problem for us because there are some ancient languages, like the language of the Indus Valley civilization, which, although being a language of our own species, we have never been able to decipher it. And look, there's multiple reasons for that, but it seems like the biggest one is that we have zero frame of reference for this language. When the Rosetta Stone was discovered, yes, it's an actual thing, not just a Filthy Frank reference, they were able to use this to decipher ancient Egyptian language. This is because on the stone, it was the same paragraph written in 3 different languages. Researchers could already decipher 2 of them, so they just used that to work out the 3rd one. When it comes to something like a language with no reference point at all, it makes things so much harder. It is thought that if aliens are similar to us in their evolution, we would be able to get to the core of their language given enough time. Jesse Snedeker, an expert in language comprehension, explains that when children hear a sentence like "the cat is on the mat," they have concepts roughly like cats, roughly like mats, and roughly like spatial relationships. If you're dealing with a species who does not have any of those concepts and assumptions, that could cause a major breakdown in communication. So this is why something like language learning games are so important, and we even see that at the moment with tourists visiting countries with a language that they don't speak. The example that gets used in this article is having an apple. Yes, this is an apple. It is not from the Christmas tree. I have apples. If you were trying to get someone to say the name of the apple in a different language, most people would get a response out of looking confused and pointing at the apple. This is a pretty universal way through body language to get across the point that you want to learn how to say what this is. Sherry Wells Jensen goes on to explain that for aliens, if we don't agree that language learning is what we are doing, you might think I am giving you the apple, threatening you with the apple, using the apple to show how mighty I am, showing you the shape of my hand if I'm pointing at it, and on and on. The idea on how we learn like this is by giving simple one-word longish responses. But what I feel like this brings up is an even larger question. How do we even get to the point of trying to communicate with an interplanetary being? And what blows me away even more is the idea that there could be aliens already trying to contact us. Because, as said by Lambros D. Kalamos, I'm really hoping I'm saying that right, I don't think I am, at some point between 1955 and 1976, he said this, look, for the NSA, it is very strangely bad record keeping. Anyway, he said that unless we are terribly conceited, we must assume that extraterrestrials are far more advanced than we are. Even a 50-year gap would be tremendous. A 500-year gap staggers the imagination. So to me, the idea that aliens may have already tried to contact us, but we were not technologically developed enough to receive the message, isn't very far-fetched and is also mind-boggling at the same time. Can you imagine a world where an alien race is trying to contact us, but it's 1775, and we're too busy using toilets for the first time in our lives. Speaking of aliens trying to contact us, there are two organizations in place at the moment whose entire purpose is to try and communicate with aliens. One of these is known as SETI, standing for Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence, and they spend their time analyzing unusual radio signals in space to try and find potential transmissions from an intelligent alien civilization. And in 2015, SETI picked up a series of fast radio burst signals which have still had no explanation, leading some people to think that it is possible that this came from an alien civilization. On the other side of the coin, you have an organization like METI, which, rather than searching for a signal, sends signals out to space hoping to hear something back. In the same way that we are searching for an intelligent signal, humans had to work out what would be considered an intelligent signal to a possibly incredibly more advanced species than us. What ended up being settled on by two scientists out of Cornell University was the signal's frequency being set at 1420.405752 megacycles per second. It's a very specific number that got used, but the reason that that was used is because it is the radiation frequency of hydrogen atoms. The idea is that anyone who also selects that frequency specifically has an understanding of radio theory which shows some common ground between the two species. Will we ever hear anything back from the signals being sent out? Considering it takes about 21 years for a signal to reach the nearest planet that might be inhabitable, who knows? Is it worth trying to? Without a doubt. Regardless of what you think of aliens already having been to Earth, the idea that humans are alone in the universe is becoming less and less likely the more we learn about it. As Dr. John Elliott, a computational linguist at the University of St. Andrews puts it, when people say they don't think there's life out there, they are really riding against the tide of scientific opinion. And really, communicating with an alien species is something that we've had an idea of for a while. We probably should be prepared for it. As Elliott goes on to explain, look at the mess we made when COVID hit. We were like headless chickens. We cannot afford to be ill-prepared, scientifically, socially, and politically rudderless for an event that could happen at any time and which we cannot afford to mismanage. The State National Academy of Sciences has gone on record that contact with other civilizations is no longer something beyond our dreams, but a natural event in the history of mankind that will perhaps occur in the lifetime of many of us. That is fucking insane. We have been talking about aliens existing for so long. The fact that some top scientists in the entire world are turning around and saying this is very likely to happen before you die. But look, if you're still not sold, Sir Bernard Lovell, one of the world's leading radio astronomers, has calculated that even allowing for a margin of error of 5,000%, there must be in our galaxy about 100 million stars which have planets of the right chemistry, dimensions, and temperature to support organic evolution. Realistically, no one can imagine what the first contact could ever look like. Maybe it'll be like Paul and they'll want to smoke weed with us or whatever happened in that movie. Or it could be like E.T. and we just want to fucking kill the thing because it's different. And if there's one thing we do know for sure, it's that there are still many people in the world who want to kill other people because they are different. And that is bad. Can you imagine the KKK's reaction to seeing an alien? They can't comprehend like a slight change in melanin in somebody. Imagine just this little guy comes out, like the classic like 4-foot alien, like wide-eyed, just walks out and they're like, sup? And they go, holy shit. We don't even have a slur to describe this guy. But if you want to stay safe, you should subscribe, because then you're not different. And that justifies you living another day in this utopia we have built called my Discord server, which you can join through the link in the description. That is one of the most bizarre ways I've plugged that, but hey, we got it in there. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. I make videos where I talk about random topics like this and also play games. So if you're interested for either of that, stick around and subscribe to see the videos when they come out. And if you've enjoyed the video, give it a like too. It does really help out. That's all I got to say. Thank you so much, and hopefully I'll see you later. Have a good one.